Hannah Murray on TRE in the afternoon.
Joining us on the line now is father and daughter Robin and Persia Hayley. Robin is the chairman of Alan Carr's Easy Way, inspired by his own transformative experience at Alan Carr's clinic. Robin began working with him in the early 90s. Robin and Persia have together written The Easy Way to Overcome Anxiety, build emotional resilience and boost your mental health. It's built on the renowned Easy Way method that has helped millions transform their habits, thinking patterns and overall well-being. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to have you with us. So, Robin, tell us about your experience, if you can, working with Alan. How did that come about?
Well, it came about because several people I knew had stopped smoking with this guy who I thought would never stop smoking. Not only did they stop smoking, they'd done it, they said, easily and didn't miss cigarettes. And so I thought, well, I'll go and see him. And the magic worked. I just sat there for about 4 to 5 hours in a small group of smokers, listened to what he said for that period, and left as a happy non-smoker, never had any desire to smoke since. And so that's how I got involved. I just thought it was, it seemed like magic at the time to me. In fact, it isn't magic, but it seemed like that because it makes something that was so incredibly difficult, if not impossible, suddenly so easy, just by going about it the right way. And so I was infused with that. And at that time, there was only one clinic. Now we have clinics in 50 different countries. And one of the interesting things was, right from the beginning, this isn't just a method of stopping smoking. In fact, it's not just a method of curing any drug addiction. It's a method of solving any problem which is essentially psychological, and that almost all problems are, in the end, essentially psychological. Now, I didn't quite understand the full implication of what he meant then, but I do now. And that is why, with the assistance of my daughter, we're able to apply the method, which was originally devised purely for nicotine addiction, to any type of mental block or fear or phobia. That sort of those sort of obstacles can be overcome with the same method.
Amazing. So can you explain the method in its simple form?
Well, probably that's best to go over to my daughter Persia for the nuts and bolts of it, because she actually, it's all based on Alan Carr's writings, but she puts them together and conceives of the first draft initially, and then I tend to edit that. So I think that's probably best answered by Persia herself.
Okay, over to you, Persia.
Okay, well, the idea is with the Alan Carr method is we look at anxiety not as a personal weakness, but as a mental trap, in the same way that addiction is also a mental trap. So we often try to control anxiety by fighting it or just ignoring it, but actually that makes the trap worse. So the easy way approach is to explain how the trap works and remove the beliefs that keep the trap working. And in the case with anxiety, it gives you sort of mental exercises that allow you to get free from this problem.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. So with regards to anxiety, there are some people who I think are always anxious and have been anxious from a young age and kind of take that throughout their lives, and other people who either don't ever experience it or haven't experienced it before, and suddenly it can hit them at one stage for any number of reasons, I guess. Are there reasons as to why people feel anxious?
Yeah, so anxiety is essentially a problem the brain has with uncertainty. We are wired to dislike uncertainty in our lives. And that makes sense when we were like hunter-gatherers. If you go into a new clearing, you don't know if there are wolves there or other people there that might be dangerous. So suddenly you fill up with adrenaline, you get full of energy, and that's a really positive thing, because in case there is danger. Now, in our modern lives now, we still get that feeling of danger when we have uncertainty. But the uncertainty is very different. It'll be like, what does this email mean? That text was a bit strange. Maybe somebody is angry with me. And we'll still get that feeling of adrenaline coming through you, but it's not for the right thing. And because the uncertainty lasts a long time, because you might not get a reply to your message or the email for a day, then the energy has nowhere to go. And that leads to anxieties, palpitations, stomach aches and things. So it's true, you can have a lot of uncertainty from your childhood and stuff, and then that leads to anxiety then. Or if you have uncertainty in your job now, or in whatever now, it can be triggered at any point. So it's a problem of uncertainty at the end of it, and it's about accepting uncertainty, that you can't have control over that. Life is uncertain.
Can people be diagnosed with anxiety in the same way that you can be diagnosed with something like ADHD?
I think that, obviously doctors diagnose people with anxiety all the time, and give them prescription drugs and stuff. It's more if you know when you're anxious, because it's a feeling. You get that, you have so much energy. When I get anxious, which is now very rarely, I would get that sinking feeling in my stomach. Other people get palpitations. So, yeah, you can get diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, but the way to get free of that is to get free of a mental process. I'm not saying that drugs don't work and they're not for everyone, but for me, that's rather like addressing the symptoms and not the cause of it. Yeah.
It must be amazing when you're helping people with this, whether it's anxiety or smoking or whatever it might be. Because traditionally with things, we're told different things work for different people. You mentioned drugs there. Some that might work for some and others might not even want to try. So I find it fascinating that there is a method that you're saying will work for everybody. Is that right?
I think it will work for everybody. And I do say this in the book. It is work, though. You have to have mental exercises. Unlike with drug addiction, the Alan Carr method that works immediately, painlessly. You come out of a session after 4.5 hours and you never want to smoke again, or you finish reading the book. This is a little bit different from that, because this is rewiring your brain, and that does take time. But I think it is worth it. After a little bit of time, suddenly you no longer have anxiety attacks over things that you did before, and that's very liberating.
Yeah, I'm sure. And how is the something that you mentioned in the book, which I thought was really interesting, is that people don't realise that they can become addicted to their anxiety, which is a really interesting concept. How does that work?
So this was something that I realised, because it used to happen to me, is I would leave my flat, go down the stairs, and then think, oh my God, did I lock the door? And then come back up. And then the first few times when the door was locked, I'd feel this unbelievable amount of relief. Now, that's relief is what one part of your brain gets addicted to. So in very, very simple terms, you've got your amygdala or nervous system, or what some people call the lizard brain, what in my book I call the caveman brain, which is responsible for keeping you safe. So when you put your hand on the hob, your hand will move away immediately without you really thinking about it. That's your amygdala taking over. The other part of the brain is the prefrontal cortex. That's involved in complex decision-making, where your personality is, and that's what I call the modern brain. Now, when I went downstairs and then thought, oh my God, have I left the door unlocked? And then come back up, and the first few times I feel great relief, I feel really anxious, come back upstairs, feel relief. Now, for my amygdala, it learns that feeling really anxious is going to lead to relief, dopamine. And we're just going to keep doing that. So because dopamine feels really good for the amygdala, the amygdala is going to trigger this sensation more and more. So it's a part of the brain that gets addicted, not all of you. So it's a little bit different from, any other kind of addiction where it's the entire person that's addicted.
Yeah, that really makes sense. So the idea that without even thinking it, you get into the habit, if you like, of going back up the stairs and checking that you've locked it because you subconsciously know you're going to get that feeling of relief.
Yes, that's right. And so that's how you can become addicted to something that's extremely unpleasant and has no advantages, really.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And with regards to all of this, so much of it seems like is about the mind and the power of the mind. And is it like all to do with creating new patterns?
Yes, that's exactly it. So you need to train your mind to not respond in this extremely violent way to uncertainty and not trying to get control over situations that you can't control. And your mind is very flexible, very pliable, and will eventually get much better at it.
So how long does this generally take then?
So I think that does depend on the person, and it depends on how much work you do put in. And it is work. I'm not going to pretend that it's not work to rewire your entire brain. For me, I started when I was writing the book and putting into practice these sorts of things. I was starting to see that things that used to make me anxious, such as did I lock the door, started leaving at around the 3-week mark for me. But it would depend on the person. It could go much quicker for some people as it could be slower for others.
Okay. So did you want to look into the subject of anxiety, particularly because you were feeling it yourself?
I think so. And I thought that anxiety, because I was doing something that I didn't enjoy and seemed to have no control over and no say over. And it reminded me of addiction in the more classical sense of drug addiction. And I thought that there could be something there. And it was more my father's idea, though. He was the one behind it. But we had a lot of discussions and did think that there could be a book and a method in this.
Yeah. So, Robin, what made you think that with all your work with addiction, that a lot of these theories and systems could transfer over to something like anxiety?
Well, drug addiction is essentially based on fear, and it's based on fear which is the result of illusions. So, for example, let's go back to the cigarette. Smokers believe they're not going to be able to cope with life or enjoy life without a cigarette, that they've got to go through some terrible trauma to become free, and that maybe they can never become completely free. They'll have to carry on using willpower to resist the urge to smoke for the rest of their lives, even if they do manage to quit. Now, anxiety conforms to a lot of these structures as well. Most people are worrying, if that's the right word, Persia, no doubt you'll correct me, because worry is distinguished from anxiety in the book quite clearly. But for the purposes of this interview, we'll group them together. So people, when they're anxious, they're worrying about all sorts of things that very often stand very little chance of actually happening. So they're based on illusions and then projections. And then, as Persia mentioned, the people don't like uncertainty, so they try to make everything certain because they have an illusion of control. They think, well, if I can control everything, if I can think out every possible eventuality, every way this person could react in this situation, cover every aspect that could possibly happen, then I'll be in control and then my anxiety will go. But actually, They're not. They're just digging themselves deeper and deeper into an anxiety spiral. So you have to let go of the illusion of control and the myth of preparedness, which is in the book also, and just understand that life is, in fact, uncertain all the time, and just accept that. It leads to the great tapestry and variety of life. Of course, if everything were predictable, it would be boring. Instead of seeking uncertainty in a world which is increasingly uncertain, you learn to accept uncertainty and manage those uncertainties. So the way I saw it could be applied was to remove fear, which is in fact groundless, by removing illusions. Alan talks a lot about brainwashing in his books on nicotine. And we've been brainwashed to believe that cigarettes give us confidence, relax us, relieve stress, that we enjoy them, that we actually like the taste of them. All these things. Now, they're all actually illusions. It's the complete opposite. But since we've been brainwashed to believe them, they have a very powerful effect on our behavior, and they create fear when we fear that we're going to be deprived of all these marvelous things. So what Alan does is deconstruct this conditioning or this brainwashing, get rid of all these illusions so that you're no longer suffering the illusion that the cigarette provides you with anything positive, and then you can let go of it without willpower. In a similar way, in this book, Persia brilliantly deconstructs all these illusions relating to an anxiety problem and enables one to become free of the problem through understanding and applying that understanding to your own daily life.
It must be amazing to see people who go through these programs and see them come out the other side, either as non-smokers or non-anxious people. They must be like, that was so easy. That was so good. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, I've had an extremely fortunate life in many ways, but I couldn't wish for a better profession. Helping people to become free of whatever problem they might have is a fantastic, it's reward in itself. To have had something so interesting and rewarding to focus on my entire professional life has been a godsend. It's very, very rewarding indeed. Yes,
it's interesting what you said about the cigarettes and how people can use them as some kind of crutch to feel better. Other people, it might be alcohol. The idea of coming home from a stressful day at work and needing that cigarette to feel better, or needing that glass of wine to feel relaxed. And the idea is training your brain so you don't need anything to feel relaxed. You can just take a deep breath or go for a walk or do something that's a lot better for you, your body and your mind, instead of something that's doing you harm.
That's precisely right. And in addition to that, it's understanding that feeling of relaxation that one gets, for example, from the cigarette isn't genuine relaxation. In the case of nicotine addiction, you've got a little, what Alan describes as a little nicotine monster inside your body that's making you feel unrelaxed. It's like putting on tight shoes to get the pleasure of taking them off. You're putting nicotine into your body. The nicotine then leaves your body and you feel unrelaxed. The symptom of nicotine withdrawal is a little empty, insecure feeling of unrelaxation. Then you have another hit, another cigarette or vape or whatever it is. And then at that moment, it's like when you take the tight shoes off, you are feeling more relaxed because you are relieving your withdrawal. But you're not actually getting any genuine boost because you're simply causing yourself the very aggravation that you are then partially relieving with the next cigarette or the next vape. So it's understanding how addiction works, as well as understanding, yes, the fantastically liberating realization that you don't need any of these artificial things to relax. We are, on the whole, now genuinely pretty relaxed if we just are mindful of how marvelous life is. I mean, we don't have these stresses and strains about getting eaten by some prey that we used to have when we were wired to suffer anxiety. We don't have to worry about whether there's a roof over our head or where our next meal is coming from. At least most of us don't. But take the life of a wild animal. A rabbit, when it comes out of its little burrow, it's got to fight for survival, but it's got adrenaline in its body and other drugs occurring naturally. We're equipped to deal with the stresses and strains of life. We're just brainwashed to believe various most unhelpful illusions, which then lead to fears and then can lead to neurotic ideas and behavior. And it's the Alan Carr method, which is very rational, with the assistance of the clarity of that and the removal of illusions and the removal of fear, that you can reach a sort of serene liberation from all that anxiety. And
how long ago was this method developed?
Well, Alan himself stopped smoking in 1983. That's when he discovered the method. And he started immediately doing sessions. The original book, which has sold around 25 million copies, was written, he wrote that in 1985. So that was when the whole thing started.
Gosh, amazing. And Persia, I have to ask you about something that Robin said, the difference that you talk about in the book between worry and anxiety. What is the big difference?
So worrying is a very rational response to something that might happen in the future. So let's say you can worry about how you're going to deal with a unfortunate social event at the end of the month. It's the beginning of the month. In 3 weeks' time, you've got to go maybe to your partner's house. You don't like their family. Just that's worry.
Okay.
Anxiety is irrational and it's chronic and it's also to a future threat. So I think the difference is worry can be solved almost immediately through something else. So let's say, take the example of this social event you don't want to go to. If you get a message saying it's been cancelled, your worry evaporates. It's gone. If you, with anxiety, it'll just keep going. It'll just find another slightly smaller thing or slightly different thing to keep going. So I can go and check whether I've left the gas on my hob. And then let's say, so I will go and check whether I've left the gas on. I haven't. I'll go to another room and then I'll have to go and check again. It doesn't just evaporate. It doesn't leave. It's completely chronic and it just keeps going until you get tired or you do something else, or so it can be separated in that way. That's the main way.
It sounds like it can be quite debilitating.
Definitely. I think if you have a very bad anxiety attack, it's completely debilitating. You're not able to do anything. And in those situations, I think the best thing to do is to not try and do anything. You always have 3 minutes of take out of your day if you're having an anxiety attack. Nothing is so urgent that it can't wait 3 minutes. And you can have a sit down. I would suggest having a tall glass of water. Water really helps to calm the body down, to reset. It will potentially involve you going to the fridge, pouring the water. All of these things will help your brain to relax slightly. And then once it's relaxed slightly, then you can think a bit more clearly. But no, it's anxiety is a very serious condition, and it is very debilitating for people that suffer from it.
I remember seeing, I think it was a documentary once, and it was talking about anxiety, and a woman was saying that she can't leave the house because of anxiety and the worry that something will happen to her, whether it's her bag being stolen, her being hit by a car, all the number of things that could happen to us whilst leaving the house. There was just so much I'm going to use the word worry again, so much to worry about that she decided she couldn't leave the house because it was too dangerous. And the idea of getting through something like that and how life-changing that must be for people if they can overcome that anxiety by this method, for example, suddenly they have their life back.
Definitely. And that's one of the great things about writing books that help people is that that's just such an amazing feeling to actually, when people write in and say that it helped, it's so great.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yes, and agoraphobia actually is a very good example of anxiety taking a sort of a symptomatic form, because people who suffer from agoraphobia clearly are also suffering from anxiety, the sort of anxieties that you just mentioned, which, of course, all these circumstances pertain to all of us all the time, but we don't worry about them because we're not actually suffering from anxiety itself, which is, it has a life of its own. As I think that's what Persia was effectively saying. You'll never beat it at its own game, because if you try and reassure it in one way, it'll just find something else to worry about. It is anxiety. You need to dismantle the core beliefs and illusions that create it in the first place, and then you can become free of it.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, if people want to become free of their anxiety, they should definitely get a copy of The Easy Way to Overcome Anxiety. It's available on our website, TRE.radio, and it's by Robin and Persia Hayley, who we've been chatting with today. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.